Oranges in No Man's Land, Chapter 5. I haven't told you about Samar yet, and she needs to be properly introduced. To be honest, when I'd met her that first evening, and for days afterwards, I was scared of her. I didn't know what to make of her. Samar didn't speak. She made grunting, squeaking noises instead. The hands flew about all the time, in complicated, flicking movements. "It's all right," Mrs. Zainab said, seeing my alarm. "Samar's not stupid. She's deaf, that's all. She can't hear what you can say to her, but she can read your lips. Just make sure she can see your mouth when you speak. She'll understand you all right." She must have seen the wary look on my face, because she frowned as if I'd annoyed her. "Samar's missing your friends," she said. "Before all this trouble began, she used to go to the deaf school. Top of the class she was. They taught her sign language there. None of us can do it properly, and she gets really frustrated when we can't understand. She's lonely. You don't have to be friends with Samar, Aisha, but she'd love to be friends with you." I could see she was worried about Samar, and that I might be about to offend her. I didn't know what to do. Then I heard a noise behind me. Samar was there. She'd been reading her mother's lips. Now she was looking at me, with her head on one side. She took hold of my hand. "That means she likes you," Mrs. Zainab said. I still wasn't sure. I'd never met a deaf person before. I didn't know what to do. But Samar did. She pulled a ball of string out of her pocket. Before I knew what she was doing, she'd looped it around my hands. "She wants to play cat's cradle," said Mrs. Zainab. "What's that?" I said. Samar rolled her eyes and grinned at the same time. She looked really funny and cheeky. She didn't need sign language to show what she was thinking. "What? Gonna play cat's cradle? Where have you been, you poor sad girl?" It was so easy to understand her that I burst out laughing. She tugged at my arm. I followed her. The place she took me to was her special place. It was a quiet corner in a turn of the stair outside the flat. She showed me the few small treasures she kept hidden behind a loose shutter. There was a little ring with a red glass bead in a matchbox, a yellow plastic rose, and a tiny toy teddy bear with a sweet little hat. That's how I became friends with Samar. She began teaching me her sign language at once. Slowly, I began to understand most of what she wanted to say. Anyway, a week later, she was as close to me as the sister I never had. That afternoon, when Granny went to sleep, and I'd been cooking the chickpeas, Samar poked her head round the screen. "Come on," she signed. "Let's play." So we went to her special place, only it was our special place now. We took out her treasures, hers and mine, and arranged them in a proper order on the windowsill. We always did it the same way, taking a long time over it before we started to play. It was our little ritual. Once we'd arranged our things, that dusty corner of the ruined stairwell became ours, set apart for us. We never noticed the people who hurried past us, to and from the upper floors of the building. The treasures I'd added to our hoard were a pink butterfly hair grip that Mama had given me, an embroidered purse that Granny had stitched, and an envelope with a pretty foreign stamp in it, in which Baba had sent a letter to Mama from abroad. The hours flew by that afternoon, as they always did when we played. I couldn't begin to tell you all we did. Cat's Cradle was only part of it. Samar was the best person I'd ever met at making up games. Clever, funny games you could play for hours in the same small space. Like many other days, we played all afternoon, until the muezzin from the mosque nearby sang out the call to evening prayer, and I told her it was time to go back in. When I got back to our corner, Latif was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. Zainab was minding Ahmed. Granny was still lying down. "I'm sorry, darling," she murmured. "You'll have to manage the supper by yourself." So I spooned out the chickpeas and found a few olives and a bit of bread to go with them, and I mashed bits up for Ahmed and fed him with them. I gave some to Latif, who'd come home with a grazed knee and was picking bits of grit out of it. I took a plate across to the mattress, but Granny just waved it away. "Maybe later," she said. It was dark by now. No one dared go out after dark, no one except for the fighters. People huddled in their corners of that echoing, high-ceilinged flat and listened or talked about the news on the radios. That evening, though, we had a few visitors. Friendly faces looked into our corner, one after the other, to ask how Granny was getting on. "How is she? Better?" they'd say, smiling sympathetically at me. "Wallah, Aisha, what a good girl you are. A fine mother you'll be one of these days. The way you look after those two brothers of yours." I don't know why, but their kindness didn't comfort me at all. It frightened me. It made me realise that something was seriously wrong. Mrs. Zainab was the only one who seemed to know what to do. She brought Granny some mint tea and knelt beside her, trying to coax her to drink. "Where's her medicine, Aisha?" she asked me. "She keeps it in the box by her pillow." "Finished. It's finished," Granny croaked. I saw Mrs. Zainab's lips tighten. My stomach lurched. Mrs. Zainab took Granny's hand and squeezed it. "Where did you get your medicine from, Auntie? Can we get some more for you?" "She brought it with us when we came," I said. "She couldn't afford to buy it. It's really expensive. Dr. Layla gave it her." "Dr. Layla?" Mrs. Zainab looked puzzled. "Yes." My skin was prickling with fear. "Granny used to work for Dr. Layla. She cleaned her house. Dr. Layla lives downtown, beyond the Burj." "But that's on the other side of the green line," Mrs. Zainab said, the worry lines deepening on her forehead. I took a deep breath. "Will she be all right, Auntie? What if we can't get any more medicine?" Mrs. Zainab didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on Granny's pale face. Then she said, "It's in the hands of God, Habibti. Inshallah, she will get well."